everybody. KMK back with you. It's been a while. Glad to see you guys. I was hoping to get everything working here. It doesn't seem like it's doing it the way I was hoping, but we'll fix that. See, we got some new graphics that we've worked on. A little bit of a different layout we're trying this year. And worked out a little bit. Hoping it'll work a little bit better. Fortunately, certain things don't always work when you're trying to actually use them. So we will put this together. Got our race breakdowns happening with Regan McCauley shortly. And yeah, excited to be back. It's been a couple weeks off, and the Pinty series is raced in Toronto. It was raced out at Edmonton, and now we're heading to Sutherland. And I happen to really like Sutherland. I think it's a great track. I'm excited to see some of the locals get out there and do what they do best. I think Chantel Kalika, Matthew Shirley are really excited to get out and race at home. It hasn't been I guess the best weeks for DJ Kennington, Dexter Stacey, EHR. Unfortunately, they had mechanical troubles, but solid for Trayton Lapsevich coming out of the race at Edmonton, despite having a very tough start with mechanical issues, a kill switch. Never count out four-time champion Scott Steckley to find the issue. And they came back, finished second in a great race. Marc-Antoine Cameron dominated the race to take the victory once again in Edmonton. He's done it a couple times in a row. Sutherland, I don't know if he's going to be able to do it this time around. Last year, big troubles within the race, an accident, and so we'll have to see kind of what happens this time around. But my good buddy and colleague Regan McCauley was able to chat with me a little bit, and we'll bring that put that on for you right now, and we'll chat with Regan and see what he thinks about the race in Toronto, race at Edmonton, and then we look forward to Sutherland and some of the announcements, obviously, regarding the schedule, possible changes for next year, and of course we make our race predictions for Sutherland. So stay tuned. We'll bring on Regan McCauley right now. So we're talking about actually a couple of things, Riggsy, because I haven't been on for a couple of weeks. So we had Toronto, we've had Edmonton, and now we're gonna have two races in one day at Sutherland on Wednesday. Tuesday. Wednesday. I myself love doubleheaders. I like getting two races done out of the way. Do I prefer having 125 and 125? Not really. But Saskatoon put on some fantastic races last year, side by side with DJ and Andrew in the first one, I believe, and then Alex out of absolutely nowhere in the second. Toronto was what it was, maybe kind of expected it would be kind of like that. It was not that it was a bad race. It was still pretty good. It was nice to see Tag get back to it's not that he didn't deserve to win last year at Saskatoon, but I think Toronto, and I know you probably have the same feelings as I do about this, but Tag used to have races where he would dominate and he would be up front the entire race. Toronto was that for him again. it wasn't a given that he was going to win because Andrew and Kevin really, and even for a while, Marc Antoine as well, looked like they were all going to be the ones who were going to potentially steal it. Now, Andrew faded towards the end, and Kevin, we're going to have to talk about that with Kevin
I'm not mentally ready.
Kevin and Kevin and Glenn's kind of deal. And then obviously we'll talk about Edmonton and what a grade A butt whooping Paye and Marc Antoine Cameron put on the field. But funny enough, the last guy that I feel it did that was Taglioni at Sunset. I want to say maybe 2018, maybe it was when he lapped all the way up to second place. It's not been something we see that often. So let's first start in Toronto. I'd say solid race, nothing too crazy, except for towards the end.
I didn't even get to watch any of the race.
Yeah. So I'll tell you right now, the Tiffany Gate Grand Prix of Toronto. Toronto races typically follow the same type of pattern. There's cautions, there's lots of cautions. There wasn't this time around. There was incidental contact once again. Checkup right at the very beginning, which ruined the day for Daniel Ball. I didn't even make it one lap because of it. But typically you get the guys that are the best on that track. The top three, they were up front once again. Cameron, he fought his way from the back of the field. I don't know if they've got something special in that car because he doesn't seem to have a problem coming up through traffic at all, ever. So I understand that there's people that are not happy with and don't feel everything's great with that car. But typically that happens when you have a guy that is able to just float through traffic like that and then dominate at, say, Edmonton. Toronto was okay. It was a typical Toronto race. I love the track. I love the atmosphere. It's great. The biggest thing about Toronto this year, I remember going back to Toronto in 2017, 2018, maybe in 2018. And when I believe they were first doing the Free Friday for the Pinty series. No one was there when the race actually started. Ugh. People were not hanging around. A lot of people left before the Pinty series. There's a lot of empty seats. Jeez. This time around, I was shocked. It was so packed. They had people there right to the very end. Lots and lots and lots of people there, which is what you want to see. I mean, I believe the Pinty series is having record crowds. It seems like it all, and even at Edmonton, we can talk about it. The crowd that you could hear on the actual broadcast were loud. And Eastbound Park, same thing. Crowds were great. CTMP, the crowds were unbelievable. Sunset. So the Pinty series is getting a good turnout of fans. I think the best video to come out of Toronto was Eva Rose celebrating her dad's victory, crying, which was just the most cute thing out there. And everybody knows that Tag's daughter is like the biggest trophy in his life, and she's on his helmet and everything, and that was a very emotional win to see that. And I guess because Tag doesn't win as often as he used to, right? So yeah. Edmonton, now you did watch Edmonton.
Yes.
You were following along with us.
Yes. I
love Saskatoon. I don't know what it is about Edmonton that it doesn't seem to, the races aren't, I guess, as interesting the last couple of years, but that kind of happens, right?
Yeah.
This one started right from the beginning, though. I thought Lapsevich was done before the green even started.
We didn't even get to the green yet, and there was just boom, something happened.
And did they ever say it was a kill switch or something?
Yeah.
They said was happened. And I loved the video with Scott Steckley just like climbing straight into the car. Didn't matter what was going on. He was ripping at whatever it was, taping stuff down. That's what you want. And I don't know about you, but I think the last couple of years when Trayton has been in competition, he's let's just forget the spam calling on my phone right now. Of course, it's right around dinner time, so the spam's got to call then. But I feel like in the past, anytime there was issues with Trayton, it was terminal,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they would beat themselves. He'd get in, he'd lead the whole race, and then get involved in a wreck. Eastbound Park and now Edmonton, I think have been some of the best performances that he has put in that entire 22 team has put together, because both times he had problems right at the beginning, fell to the back, and had to race his way back up front. And I think the field was really, despite what the leader did, the field was pretty tough.
I mean, too, with Lapsevich as well, there's been those situations with him. And then you get a race like back at Sunset where he's dominating the whole thing, but then someone comes in and tries to spoil the party, and good old Alex Gannett.
Yep.
Still wish he did. But
Yep.
but no, Lapsevich just got him right back. It's just like, no, you're not spoiling my domination there. Of course, we saw Chaudier Cameron was able to illegally do it.
Yep.
But yeah, no, Lapsevich has been dealing with situations this year where he'll get hit with something no matter when in the race it is, but he'll still be able to come home and get the job done, whether it is in victory lane or getting a good finish, no matter what. So, I mean, you see him at the top of the standings, high in points. I mean, it's now like, what, 21 or something over. Yeah, 21 over Lacroix right now. Like, you see him right there. And you might assume something like, oh, yeah, he's just out there dominating. It's, it's whatever. No big deal. But you got to really pay attention to these races and see what's going on, because there's something that's happened with Lapsevich every single race, no matter what. And that's just, part of all the, the good storylines we're seeing all across the field. And I mean, that's what Edmonton provided there. I personally thought, even though Cameron dominated the whole thing, like that's one of those factors with fans where if the driver dominates the whole thing, they might just write it off as nothing. Yeah. But behind Cameron was unbelievably competitive.
Yeah.
And you even said, yes. And you even said at the start too, like things were happening right off the bat. Like that first half was incredible. The second half did teeter off a little bit there. We had a few close calls, but it still was phenomenal to watch. And I want to give a shout out to the broadcasters, because they did a phenomenal job paying attention to everyone behind Cameron instead of focusing on just him, which easily made the experience way, way more entertaining. Yeah. And that's why I love watching it so much. Like literally, I was practically stressing it the whole time. And I was just like, the icing on the cake would be a Cameron issue.
It would have been.
Yes.
Honestly, because that's kind of the way it felt. It felt like everything's happening too good. Now, do I think that there's something going on still? It's a little weird. I'm not gonna lie. It is a little weird that you have a team that was 9th in practice, goes out, wins the pole position, and then dominates the entire race. But at the same time, Kevin Lacroix was 2nd quickest in practice and qualified only 10th. So the key seems to be getting that set up. And the whole race would have been different, I think, if Trayton Lapsevich didn't have the problem, because he would have been starting on the front row.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we saw him surge right up to the front, all the way from the back. He luckily was able to make the green flag. And if he didn't, that would have been huge for the points. And he makes his way all the way up to about 6th, and he's right there to pass Donald Teague to get into the top 5, loses it. And he has to go all the way back to, I think it was like the bottom of the top 10 somewhere, last car on the lead lap or something around there. And then he makes his way back up, and he's still able to finish 2nd. So start 2nd, finish 2nd. I mean, it was the same thing. Like qualified 1st, finish 1st for Cameron, qualified 2nd, finish 2nd for Lapsevich. And then the rest of the way is just
They're
way back
literally
and
copying
forth.
each other. It is
Yeah,
literally like a copy
basically,
and paste.
yes. Yeah.
And, Cameron, we don't need this. If you're the rest of the field, you don't need him to get hot right now, because if he starts to get hot right at the crucial, like this part, this is halfway through the championship. The next race is 7 of 14.
Yeah.
You cannot afford a bad race. Now, for Trayton, I'd say if he has a bad finish within these 2 races, that's okay, because the field's not very big. However, GP3R, you could lose the championship if you have an issue and finish near the back.
Yeah, like 30 entries or something.
Potentially right now, GP3R, we could have up to 30 entries, which I don't know the last time that we've seen 30. I did speak with someone within the broadcast team, and they said, "Ooh, that's too many cars." And I kind of have to agree with them, because if you have
seeing how last year went,
right, and we don't want another. We don't need a pile up. We really don't. We don't need wrecked cars. Now, there's a couple of names coming out for GP3R that haven't been in the series, in years. There's names that I think we would expect to do well once again. I'll admit, Edmonton crushed my spirits a little bit, because my pick was doing so well, and then right before the halftime break, the engine went, and I credit Adam and Clinton for saying that it was suspension or it was the body hitting. I could see it was from the tailpipes. And Alex Gannett, man, he's that. Now, he and Dexter both had mechanical issues, but he's what they needed at EHR. I am solely convinced now that it's not just good luck for the first couple of races. You had talked about him in our preview, that you felt really, really good about his chances. I agree with you. And you talked about him winning on an oval. I agree with that too. I have a feeling Saskatoon is a good track, I think, for a lot of people. Do I think that's the best place for him potentially to win? I don't know, but there's going to be a lot of competition on Wednesday.
Well, what's after GP3R? Is it Oshwicken?
It is the doubleheader, yes, at Oshwicken.
I mean, that's right there. You could try and get your first win in an oval on the dirt. That's an option.
Hey, Drayton did pretty good at winning on the dirt. So,
well, yeah.
And
that's another thing you were mentioning earlier about the fans as well. I really, really wonder for a doubleheader on dirt, returning to Oshwicken after a first race last year, knowing how that went. Again, it wasn't a perfect race.
No.
But the potential was massive. And if we get that, and like that's why I'm thinking, with you mentioning earlier about like record crowds, it would not shock me at all if Oshwicken was like that crowd was full for both of those races.
And I'm not 100%, I'm pretty sure that Glenn has put in additional seating for this year.
Okay, that helps,
because they had such a good turnout last year. They've made a lot of improvements to Oshwicken, and now I don't believe it's coming back next year. Personally, like I don't believe it's coming doubleheader. I mean, I don't think the doubleheader is coming back next year. I personally believe the reason that we got a doubleheader is because Granby did not happen this year.
Yeah,
when they released initially that schedule, the graphic that had Oshwicken but also had Granby and it had Riverside, I think stuff was gonna happen, and then something led to them maybe not being cleared. And so out of the two of those, though, Riverside and Granby, I think Granby is closest to getting it, because I know Dominic Lucer is working like mad to get that to happen. And they also won the Advanced Auto Parts $50,000, I think it was $50,000 or $30,000 Advance My Track challenge or whatever, where they won money for their track. I can't imagine upgrades wouldn't be happening to the facility for a NASCAR Pinty's race. And then, of course, the big question mark, I think, Riggsy, is Montreal.
Yeah.
And everybody is, I got somebody emailing or messaging me this week asking if that's happening. I don't know. I certainly feel that if the Cup Series is going and they're not taking Xfinity and they're not taking trucks, Pinty's is there. I don't see why they wouldn't have the opportunity to have a Pinty Series companion event. And if it does happen there, we probably going to get 30. I would think we'd have 30 entries at least for Montreal. It's a good bet that we'd get guys coming from all over the country to do it. We talked about my pick having bad luck for the race. Your championship pick, I don't know what you did, but
I killed him.
Oh,
I literally killed him.
I almost wonder if he's just like, all right, let's look for next year, because he can't win the title.
Well, that would be funny if this year, you know, what's happening now just continues, and the next year I just write him off as nothing, and then he comes back up, and all of a sudden he becomes like, he and Cameron like swap positions or something.
I don't know, man. It is a completely different organization, right? Like White Motorsports and Paillet. I don't know if Paillet is going to do their own chassis and their own cars. I believe they're with McCall, but or maybe they are with White, and it's just they obtain the chassis and they put it all together. But I would think that's an attractive idea, though. Is if they do exactly what they're doing for Camera and for Ranger, then watch out, because and I don't know, like, we don't know, maybe it's just the competition is a lot tougher. I mean, even Kevin Lacroix has not gotten a victory yet. So, and that's since, like, I don't know, has he gotten a victory with Napa yet on the car? Because it's looking a little. I know he did. I think he won an iCar last year with Napa, but.
Now, the thing is, if either of Lapsevich or Camran starts to run into issues within the next couple of races, what you're saying right there, like a guy like Lacroix, and then there's other guys like Kennington, Dumoulin, Tagliani, Gannett. If either of those two guys I mentioned before run into issues within the next couple of races, then I feel like all hell could break loose. For sure, especially with the upcoming stretch. You got 2 races at Saskatoon. You got a race at GP3R, arguably the best road course on the schedule. It definitely was last year. And then you got an Osh weekend doubleheader on dirt. Like that circuit diversity is crazy.
Yeah,
which is why even for Saskatoon, like I would want to see neither Lapsevich or Cameron go for the win. I have picks in mind for Saskatoon where both races have different winners, but that's another guy I mentioned in there. I actually was more surprised that this guy had issues more than Ranger did. I was not expecting the camera to pan to the number 17 Castrol Dodge running and having fluid coming out of the front of the car on pit road.
So it turns out he hit debris. And that's the worst possible way to go out. And especially for for those that don't know, DJ drives his hauler to the track himself. So he did
that doesn't surprise me.
He did the same thing to Eastbound Park, and then they were out in no time as well. I mean, that's got to be devastating. It's great for him. He gets a great road trip with his son Chase, but I mean that. He puts so much effort. He's helping out Larry Jackson. He helps out the White teams.
Yeah, and Jackson's been phenomenal this year for his standards.
It's been fantastic for Larry, and for a guy that doesn't normally have the funding to go out west.
Yeah, and he didn't do that last year. That's why I was I didn't know what to think of him. I was just kind of like 50-50. I'm like, well, I mean, he's been doing good for his standards. But I just don't know, because he wasn't there last year. But no, he still was able to do well on an oval where you're packed with everyone.
Exactly. And right now, I believe they're going to do the full season. I mean, he is within the top 10 in points.
Yeah, 8th. He's right. He is in front of Kennington.
He's in front of Kennington. He's in front of Ranger, I believe, too.
And Ranger.
which again for Larry Jackson, that's huge.
Indeed.
Absolutely fantastic. And for him, good on him because he's gotten some new partners on that car this year. Wonder Bread came back on. They were with him a couple years ago. Visit Barbados was on his car in Toronto. eBay Motors been on the car. E3 Spark Plugs was on the hood for the Western races. Good on Larry Jackson, a guy who just works and works and works and doesn't have a ton. He and Howie Scannell, man, like they just continuously impress for what they have. And I mean, we're looking at potentially this field expanding for next year when we do go to these oval races. I think a team like Josh Collins Racing is looking at doing all the ovals in the future. And with crowds like what they saw in the just the effort that the Theerings put in at Edmonton. We're going to Sutherland next, and Sutherland's the exact same. I do think obviously the road trips are great. I think they do hurt the potential for how many people they could have on a Wednesday, because it is on a Wednesday night, and people have to work within the week. However, you're not staying weeks at a time between races. That can't happen. So I like the schedule. I like that it's also mid-July now. We talked about the schedule and they wanted the schedule to come out this summer. So we're running out of time for July. We have now, I personally think that they're going to make the announcement for our schedule likely once the Cup schedule drops, because I think if Montreal is part of that, they don't want to announce our schedule before that.
Like September-ish?
I kind of feel that that's the route that we're going to end up. It's still not in the summertime where, Tony had said that they were hoping for, but I still think that that's in their plan. Now, maybe they won't be able to. Like, it might come down to logistics and that they may not be able to, but I still have a belief that we're going to see some new tracks on the schedule next year. I think that second Osh weekend race, I don't know about iCar. I have my opinions on iCar.
I do too.
If I'm going to pick iCar or Montreal, there's no question. If I'm going to pick Riverside to be added to the track or to the schedule, obviously I'd want that on there. It's just at what expense?
IWK 250 and Pinty's at Riverside, man. Like,
now that would be a good ticket. I take that.
Beautiful coverage, beautiful. But then logistics just
it's tough, man. It is, and we technically don't have a track out in BC that we race either, so we're not completely. We don't race in Manitoba either, so there's not tracks everywhere that we can go to. I mean, there's tracks in New Brunswick we could try. I don't know about Nova Scotia. Other than Riverside, I think it's PEI, like we talked about, is maybe probably a little too small for that to happen. But the fact of the matter is, I have people in the Facebook group asking about Saint-Air, asking about Mont-Tremblant, asking about Montmagny. The reality is, there's not enough money in the series to go to having a 20 race schedule. It's not going to happen.
Didn't you say to one person that one of the tracks was like noise complaints or something?
Yeah. So right now, Mont-Tremblant has, and that's a great track. I love that track. However, it has noise restrictions, and the noise restrictions are the same, I believe, for Calabogie.
Okay, wrong word.
Calabogie is the same in Ontario, in that there are existing circuits, road course circuits, but because of where they're located, it's not going to work because of the noise restrictions that they have. Now, do I think that they could set that aside for 1 week? I don't know. Like, I don't know how the city works. We know that governments are really quick to kill racetracks, especially when it comes down to property values. It's one of the things that does impact a lot of facilities. Is the land value is just, it's worth so much. But I think that there is solid value in trying new places. I don't know right now, though, out of all the races that we've seen this year, there really hasn't been a bad crowd, though. So
No,
it's
no.
kind of like, uh-oh. Like, I think if we go from 14 to 15, that's fine. 15
Yeah.
races is good. But again, the value has to be there. And I don't know if the money is we have to remember that, like, this is a lot on the teams, a lot on the drivers. We've already had a couple of drivers this year that aren't going to be going full time. They've kind of dropped off, like Wallace Stacy's not done the last couple of races. So financially, it just isn't doable. Do I think that the series would be better as like a 10 race schedule? Like maybe, but
I
if you're
mean,
doing 10 races, you'd
yeah.
only do like one out west.
I
And
mean, I know the argument over here with our with us Super Late Model series. The kind of the consensus I've heard is that we can't go over 8 races. We currently have 6 for our first year, but if we go over 8, then we're going to run into problems because I know the Maritime Pro Stock Tour currently runs 12, and about that, yes, the IWK 250 was able to get like 27 cars, but I mean, again, it's the IWK 250. It's prestigious. It's got that history. Everyone goes for it. Like we had Gary Elliott and Rick Spencer Walt both run it. Like Rick came over from Ontario, so did Dwayne Baker as well. But then for Petty this past weekend, Petty International Raceway in Riverglade, New Brunswick, there were only 15 cars that showed up.
And that's my concern. Is when you stray away from those Ontario, Quebec hub, which, again, with all due respect to Western and Atlantic Canada, the hub of the series is Ontario and Quebec. Now, a lot of Quebec fans will argue with me and say that, well, it's Quebec. No, it's not. A lot of the pilots, a lot of the racers, and the money is coming from Quebec. That is absolutely true.
Yes.
But when you look at a lot of the cars in the teams are prepared in Ontario. So you have to kind of mesh those two together. Essentially, it is an Ontario, Quebec run series.
Yeah, just say both. Is that even possible?
It is. But that's what it is. Because without the money from Quebec, we can't race. And without the racers from Quebec, we wouldn't have much in terms of drivers in cars.
Yeah.
The cost is really the question mark, right? And that's, of course, with all racing. But I think if you all of a sudden have a Cup Series weekend that, say, the Pinty Series is going to be a partnership with, that makes our series very attractive for partnerships for at least that weekend, and potentially in the long run, because I think a lot of companies and a lot of eyes still don't know about it. And the more that we have shows like this and we talk about the series, the more that there's opportunities to. Now, Trayton Lapsevich escaped. He escaped Edmonton.
He did.
What do you think about the guy that was battling him right to the line for second, though? Because I think that may have been his best race in at least 2 years, and that's LP Dumoulin.
Yeah, the kind of the championship defending slump last year, that was definitely not at all Dumoulin style, like standards. It was not even close for him. But again, now he's 4th in points, 34 behind the leader. Like, you can't call him out of it yet. And we even, I think we saw it at Saskatoon last year. I don't recall perfectly. I think he did good.
I mean, the one thing that I think about Dumoulin is if he's not involved in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't know the last time they've had a mechanical failure. I couldn't be on. I'll be honest with you. I don't even remember them having a mechanical failure.
No,
like, it's like Cameron recently, where they seem to have all their mechanical issues in practice, and then the race they're completely fine.
Okay, he got 8th and 3rd last year, so yeah, that's
got a podium,
solid.
Got a podium out of it.
Yeah,
top 10s in both, which is pretty good considering the amount of carnage that was at that track last year.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there was a lot of carnage, especially in the first race. There was carnage, but the thing is too, though, before the lead up to the carnage, it was like It was like watching super speedway racing, like four
It
or five
was.
cars in a pack for
Yes.
like
Yeah.
25 laps. And then finally it blew up at some point, which was
Yeah.
completely expected.
Yeah.
But the racing in the first twin was amazing.
Yeah.
Second twin calmed down. I mean, fair enough. I don't think anyone wanted any more damaged cars,
No.
but yeah, it was still good, especially for the fans. It's kind of a yeah, speaking of fans too, I was gonna say earlier as well with Toronto, like you fans in Toronto, I think might have a better perspective on how the races are there
Yeah.
because they're actually there. They get to witness all that. But then whenever you're trying to see it from a TV perspective, like like from home, it's not as viable, not as credible. But
I'd argue a little bit. I think it's actually better on the
up and down.
broadcast side.
Well,
Because
yeah, that's the other thing too. I was just thinking of that. Yeah.
because it's only, and I say this about all road circuits. I'm not really the biggest fan of going to them because you only see a certain section,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of not what I want to see when I go to
It's
spend money at a racetrack.
it's so inconsistent because like you'll get people that'll love it at the track and people that'll hate it because then they don't see anything. And then you'll get it from the at home perspective where you get to see a lot of stuff, but there are still some things you miss anyway. So it's just that's why the road road courses are always so mixed. It's
Well,
crazy.
and I mean, I think for myself, when we went to GP3 last year, we were unable to stay for the race because unfortunately it was delayed by a couple of hours and we were supposed to be home. So, but I will say, I feel like it's, you see more when you're at Trois Rivières. I think the way that it's laid out, you see a lot more. There's a lot of section in Toronto where you're not able to actually see much. And that obviously is a bit of a downside. Whereas I think in ovals, you can, I believe actually people have said that in certain spots at iCar, you can see everything because it's flat. But if you're there in the stands, you really can't because there's no depth perception there, right? Like there's no elevation change. CTMP is like that as well, where you're good to see like one corner, right? And that's kind of it. On the front stretch is probably the best because you could, if you're from up on the hill, you can see them funneling into turn one. You can't really see them in turn one, but when they start to come up the hill, then you see them there. And then the best part is when they come on the back stretch under the bridge into turn, I believe it's turn 9, and then you see them through 10 and 11 through the front portion of the track. But what's coming next is you said that there's 2 picks for Sutherland. Now again, it's your race winner, but then also an underdog pick. Okay.
Oh yeah, we're technically making 4 picks. We're
technically making 4 picks. Now
yes.
I've already kind of got my two picks. It's not really going to be much of a shock, frankly. Race winners is going to be Cameron and Lapsevich. I know that seems very obvious, but I kind of think that's what's going to happen. I think somebody is going to get angry at somebody as well in one of these races.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to get turned. In terms of two picks that are kind of my underdogs, Donald Teach, because I think he's so good at this racetrack. He's won here before.
Yeah.
And you know what? I am gonna say Alex Gannett. I just if they can curb the mechanical issue, he was strong. He was strong at the start of the race in Edmonton, so I'm going to go with those guys. I feel like I'm copping out though, picking the championship leaders. But
would you really consider Gannett an underdog at this point, though?
I'm only calling him an underdog because he hasn't won on an oval before.
Okay, I guess that does make sense. But in my mind, though, the way Gannett's run this season, I wouldn't count him as that. Personally, that's just my opinion. But for my picks, I'm going complete opposite of you. Like you're going all out for the guys that are running for the title. Meanwhile, I'm going more towards guys that are trying to read this properly. Yeah. One of them's at the bottom of the top 10, and then one's not even in the top 10.
I think I
So
know who's one of those picks. So
I'm going Brandon Watson and
yeah,
DJ Kennington.
yeah. All right.
And
Okay.
for the underdogs, does Kyle Steckley count?
I don't know if Kyle Steckley is running. I guess he is,
Or is
though.
he not? I thought he
I'm not
was
sure.
on the
I can't
West
remember
Coast.
if he is. And I actually sent him a message asking him to confirm because I frankly can't remember. Let's see. Did he tell me? No, he hasn't gotten back to me yet. If Kyle Steckley is, which he might very well might be, I just may have forgotten that he was.
So in that case, I'll probably just go to two other drivers. Maybe he'll be like a third, perhaps.
Okay.
Who knows? But I'm gonna go with I gotta go Dexter Stacy. I feel like he's like I feel like I've stolen him at every single trap because he definitely could have been in the running even for a top 5 back at Edmonton before he ran into issues, which that was painful. It's funny. Every single time a driver had some issue, I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Every single time. So yeah. Are Chris Sheik and Kalika are both running the races, both of them.
Jamie Krizik,
Or Krizik, sorry.
Krizik, Kalika, and Matt Shirley are all running again.
Okay, because I think Shirley would make total sense after getting a top 10 at Saskatoon, which I would assume you probably know more about that than I would. But I guess that's a point we did kind of miss out on with Edmonton. The locals for the positions that they got, unbelievable. Like Jamie could have very well walked away with 8th or 7th.
I think he could have gotten to the top 5. Honestly,
even that too, yeah. And Thomas Naveau even in there, the rookie. Finally a good performance, but go figure, it's on an oval.
Yeah, and let's not jinx him either. He doesn't need anymore. I don't know if he's actually racing at Sutherland either. There's talk that he might not be in the seat because he's got somewhere else that he's racing. So there could be a special someone in that ride. I don't know who. The person that I was thought to be in it, maybe not, but might not be in it anymore. Chantel came away with a 14th place finish, and Matt with the top 10, and Jamie was in the top 10 until he had issues that put him out of it. But you're going to Sutherland, which is Matt Shirley and Chantel Kalika's home track that they race pro late models at. So
even better factor right there.
It's a good mix. Matt Shirley, talked with him after, he's super pumped after everything. And the season, man, doesn't stop getting better. Even though, like you said, you have those races that maybe people will go and say, it was kind of this, there's kind of that. It still is offering a lot of storylines week in and week out, and that's what we need. We don't know what's going to happen on Wednesday.
I mean,
we really have no idea.
People are always, just going for, if this guy dominates, then blah, 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 whatever. That happened. But every single race, there's always been something elsewhere in the field. Like I've been saying it, the middle of the field has something, the back of the field always has something. There's going to be guys that you completely do not expect at all to go run into issues. And if something happened, we saw it back at Chaudier with Donald Teague, and again with Andrew Ranger as well. And I think Teague is one of those guys I think could have definitely had a better finish at Edmonton. He had the speed for even maybe a second place. Don't know anything about for Cameron, but every race, like you're saying, has something about it. And that's why you got to pay attention and not really say anything. Like you got to think before you speak, basically. You got to do your research, actually watch the races. And that is why I'm shouting out the broadcast for really emphasizing the battles that are going on away from the leaders, because that's where the attention has to go. And that's kind of the mindset that we're getting with the Super Late Model Series over here in Atlantic Canada, is we're trying to put everyone in the spotlight, especially drivers that may not get as much attention or as much discussion towards them. But we're trying to give that to every single one of them, because again, driver and fan focused series, we're trying to focus on everyone we can. And that's why we've been so successful over here. And so far for the Pinty series, that's why we've been seeing a lot of success, especially when seeing these guys like Dexter Stacy, JP Bergeron, Larry Jackson, all these guys running better than expected. If you're paying attention, then you're really going to be entertained by what's going on here this year. And there's no doubt, especially knowing the rumored schedule for next year, 2024 is going to be even better.
I think I believe we've had that conversation right here on the show with each other, saying next year looks to be even bigger. Now, I still hope that costs will continue to come down, because as an Ontario guy, I do want to see more Ontario representation. I think that is something that's crucial to the series. As much as Quebec fans might want to see only Quebec drivers, that's not a reality in a national championship. It needs to be people from all over, not just one province. I do expect there will be more races in Quebec next year. I think that the crown jewel might be changed. I mean, we know that it is GP3R that has been the best of the best, but if Montreal comes into the equation, I'd be very interesting to see which one is the one that people flock to. Now, GP3R, I love the circuit a little more than I do Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I absolutely love the streets in Trois-Rivières. I think it's one of the most unique layouts of a racetrack, and man, if you ever get the opportunity to go, it is a festival like no other. I almost like it more than the idea of Cup coming to CGV, only because when Pinty's is in Trois-Rivières, it's the Pinty's drivers that are the stars. They're the headliners. And if Cup comes, we won't be the headliners.
Now, the thing is, though, if you're able to get Xfinity or trucks at Trois-Rivières somehow, then that could help Pinty's get more of the spotlight there. Because if you try the Cup Series, then there's a little bit of
well, that's what I'm thinking. Like if Montreal, if that's what they end up doing, and they do Pinty's as like a Saturday headliner, great idea.
Yeah,
excellent idea. Because the likelihood is you could probably get a Kyle Larson or a Kyle Busch or Christopher Bell. Maybe that's not the Toyota guys, but the Chevrolet drivers, or maybe some Ford drivers coming in specifically just so they can get some practice on the racetrack. That would be huge for our series. Absolutely huge to get Cup drivers coming into the series, trying them out. And guess what? If you get Kyle Busch in a Pinty's car, say with McLaren Grills, because it's a company out of Winnipeg that's already sponsored him, and he likes it, if he gives some kind words about the race cars, if he gives kind words about the tires, if he gives kind words about the racing series, all of a sudden, eyes are going to flock. Now,
headlines are going to soar.
And well, he's already had a history here. Like Kyle Busch Motorsports was putting their development drivers, Toyota development drivers, in DJK and 22 Racing equipment for many years when the trucks were a part of things. So we saw the Christopher Bells, the Noah Gregsons, Kaz Grala's. It is definitely possible that we could see all of those names. Now, Oshweekend is the same thing. There's still the belief that we're going to see maybe Kyle Larson, and we know for sure like Kenny Strader or Stuart Friesen are likely going to be coming back. I think Haley Deegan is somebody that's absolutely attainable for them to go out and get. She's a dirt driver. She loves dirt. Whether it's not she's allowed to because she's a Ford performance driver might be something that would be a bit of a hurdle, but we already know Glenn Stiers has history with so many of the drivers in the Pinty series. You've also got ARCA driver Amber Balkin that wants to be a part of the series. So you've got people showing the interest.
Ryan Vargas,
he's wanted to be in the series for a long time. Josh Williams in the Xfinity series. So now all of a sudden, even if you put Xfinity on, say, the Saturday afternoon and had Pinty's as a headliner in the morning, all of a sudden, again, that's three, and I could see that too. If I'm not mistaken, the Pinty series was the morning race when Xfinity was racing in the afternoon on the Saturdays. So it is a great possibility. I love the idea. I'm excited for Sutherland. I love this track. I love a lot of this field. I love the drivers coming in from out west.
For Sutherland.
Great people.
I love this track.
Great for the series.
I love
some new partnerships like Magnolia Management coming in. Provincial Vodka with Crush It on Matt Shirley's car. Once again, AGI always was coming in with Chantel Kalika. Crown Pell Ventures, Burmar Rewind with Jamie Krizik. Good on them for coming out week in and week out. I hope we get to see a couple more Western drivers in the future. 3 is a little small. I'd like to get up to what we saw with Newfoundland. 5,
Yeah, like 5, yeah.
5 would be really good. Now, we only got 5, I think, because of Josh Collins racing there too. But
influence.
I still think 5 is a good number. It's not too crazy, but it also gives us back to the old CASCAR West vibes and CASCAR East vibes. So I'd be all for that. Rigsy, I appreciate you coming on. Let's give a quick shout out to your social media, how people can follow you, and of course, your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, I'm at Riegser on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can find me, Regan McCauley, on my personal account on Facebook as well. I'm in the NASCAR Pinty Series community as a moderator. I'm with the Stickers and Scuffs podcast, of course, representing Atlantic, Canada. That was phenomenal to do with the IWK 250 weekend with Gary Elliott and Rick Spencer Walt, of course. So I'll be continuing to cover the Super Late Model Series and, other local stuff going on. And I believe I have another weekend actually that I'm going to be adding to my schedule for Atlantic Canada coverage, and that would be Speed Weekend at Speedway 660 in early September. So I'm hoping to get out there for that weekend. The funny thing is, that's going to be 4 days in a row of racing because Friday, Saturday, and Sundays at 660, and I have to come all the way back for Monday afternoon racing at Oysterbed Speedway. So that's right before year 2 of college for journalism begins right there. So that's going to be a little bit of a physical toll, but I'm really hoping that I can get out there and, continuing to do amazing coverage for the Stickers and Scuffs podcast as per usual. And can't wait to have some more late night racing on Wednesday at Saskatoon for the NASCAR Pinty Series.
That's right. Rigsy, thank you so much as always for joining me. That's Regan McCauley. He'll be back with us. Hopefully next week we'll go over the Sutherland races, and look forward to GP3R first week in August. So
Indeed.
We'll get back to the show here. Here's Rigsy. Thank you so much. Well, it's nice to be back. I'll try and figure out the schedule stuff and the way things are looking on the screen. It's a little too close up on my face, but it's what happens when you do a new layout. Sometimes they don't actually work exactly as you were hoping for. The graphics, I don't need them to keep going on and on and on. So, but we're racing again on Wednesday. It's going to be a great time, and we'll look forward to it. But yeah, that's it's going to be it for this week. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll be back next week. We'll talk more about Sutherland and the Pinty Series. 2 races. We'll see where we go with the championship from there. Make sure you stay tuned in on G4's TV. Clinton and Adam will be up at 8 o'clock with the Race Rivals Race Chat. So glad to see them back. Changing things up. They're going to be there on the on a Monday. Not normal for them, but they're a little bit busy this weekend. This week being in charge of the broadcast. Make sure you guys check it out. And yeah, stay tuned for G-Force TV all summer long. Continue our work building the channel up. And week in and week out with the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour. Episode 52 is now in the books. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and share. We are always willing to have more people come in and listen. And we appreciate each and every time you guys are tuning in. And, have yourselves a great week. And we'll chat with you all next week.